In a feel-good rebirth novel, there exists a seemingly minor canon fodder character. Tang Cheng, who once schemed to marry her beloved prince, suddenly finds herself engaged to the heir of the Duke of Zhenguo, a man known for his difficulty in fathering children. But just 1 month later, she becomes pregnant. And that is where a heartwarming and unexpected love story begins. But in this story, Tang Cheng is no longer the blind canon fodder. She is a transmigrator, from an interstellar empire, unaware of the tragic fate the original character once faced. When handed a dark vial of abortion medicine, she simply smiles, throws it away, and vows to protect the little life within her. When Huayan, the heir admired by countless noble ladies, now stands beside Tang Cheng, a man once believed to be childless, finds his destiny changed by a woman who brings him miracles. From a marriage of schemes grows a family envied by the world. This is the journey from canon fodder to the true mistress of happiness, a tale filled with warmth and unexpected turns. You're listening to the story on Galaxxy romance novel. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you won't miss the next chapters. In the 24th year of the Yonghe era of the Great Zhou dynasty, the spring season was in full bloom, bathed in gentle sunshine. In the peony garden of the Marquis of Nanyang's estate, Tang Cheng stared at the bowl of dark, murky liquid in her hands, the pungent smell of medicine filling her nose, and hesitated, making no move to drink it. The maidservant, Shanhu, grew slightly uneasy as she saw her mistress frozen in place. Urgently she prodded her. "Miss, please drink it quickly. I went to great trouble to fetch this medicine for you." Tang Cheng had only recently taken over this body, left behind by its previous owner, and hadn't yet absorbed her predecessor's memories. Unfamiliar with her surroundings and wary of acting recklessly, she glanced at the young woman beside her, urging her to drink. "Leave," she said calmly. Shanhu's eyes widened, taken aback. "But miss, out." Tang Cheng had no idea who the young woman before her was, but hearing her call her miss suggested she was a servant. Without hesitation, Tang Cheng dismissed her. Shanhu's face turned a mix of pale and green, clearly shocked that she, the maid her mistress trusted most, had been sent away. She bit her lip, her eyes fixed on the delicate porcelain bowl in her mistress's hand. She desperately wished she could pour the medicine down her mistress's throat herself, but she didn't dare. Crossing her mistress would surely end badly. Her mistress was not someone to be trifled with. Noticing the slight displeasure on Tang Cheng's face, Shanhu reluctantly bowed her head and withdrew. Left alone, Tang Cheng first took in her surroundings. The room was furnished with elegant, vintage wooden pieces, exuding sophistication and grandeur. Sensing no immediate danger, she closed her eyes, and memories of her body's original owner began to surface. After a quarter of an hour, she had fully absorbed the memories and understood her current era and circumstances. She seemed to have crossed into a legendary ancient feudal period, an age untouched by modern technology. Here, there were no conveniences of science, but every woman could bear children naturally, with none of the restrictions of fertility values. Tang Cheng's beautiful almond eyes widened in shock as she stared at the murky medicine in her hands, recalling the former owner's choice to terminate a life without hesitation. A flash of anger spread across her delicate, lovely face. Without a second thought, she strode to the window and poured the medicinal liquid outside. No sooner had she emptied the bowl than a maid in a blue dress rushed in, just in time to see the empty porcelain bowl in Tang Cheng's hand. Her face turned to utter despair. "Miss, the miss had drunk the abortive medicine." Curse that Shanhu. While she was distracted, Shanhu had secretly slipped her mistress an abortive medicine and deliberately sent her away. Miss, did you drink that bowl of medicine?" Panting slightly and with a sheen of sweat on her nose, the maidservant, Zhenju, hurried over with a look of anxious concern. Seeing Zhenju's familiar face, Tang Cheng's expression softened. She remembered that Zhenju, this lovely maid in a blue dress, was trusted by the Marquis, her father. However, the original owner had never liked this maid who always gave her sensible advice. Instead, she trusted the scheming and flattering Shanhu, who harbored ill intentions. "No, I poured it out," Tang Cheng replied calmly. The thought of the original owner's attempt to secretly terminate her pregnancy stirred anger in Tang Cheng's expression. She herself had a fertility score of 0 and could never have children, a fact that had always left her longing for a child of her own. Here, the original owner possessed the natural, highly fertile body Tang Cheng had always dreamed of. Yet she didn't appreciate it, and even sought to end the pregnancy. Thankfully, Tang Cheng was here now. In this feudal era, lacking technology, lifespans were painfully short compared to the long-lived people of her star-bound world. The original Tang Cheng had been a young lady of a marquis's household, pampered and esteemed, albeit only as an illegitimate daughter, a status far below Tang Cheng's own background, though she didn't mind. After all, just being alive was enough. Not to mention, she'd been handed a baby along with this new life. Tang Cheng tried to keep a straight face, though a glimmer of joy still sparkled in her eyes and tugged faintly at the corners of her mouth. At 24 years old, she finally had a child of her own. Zhenju froze, then broke into an ecstatic smile. After a moment she carefully asked, "Miss, have you decided to keep the baby?" Tang Cheng nodded naturally as her hand instinctively brushing over her still flat abdomen. She couldn't help but smile as she thought, she has a baby now. Zhenju, I've thought things through. The fourth prince doesn't care about me, so why should I foolishly care for him? Actually, marrying Lord Wen wouldn't be so bad. But inwardly, she thought that as long as she have a baby and good food, who cares about the fourth prince? Well, Lord Wen was the father of this child, so she could care about him too. Her baby needs a complete family. Hearing her mistress's words, Zhenju finally relaxed and was nearly moved to tears. This is wonderful, Mississippi. It's wonderful that you feel this way. Lord Wen is a good man, you won't regret this choice. Lord Wen had always struggled with having heirs, so the fact that her mistress became pregnant by him, after that unexpected encounter, was truly a blessing. The child in her mistress's womb might well be Lord Wen's only heir, perhaps even destined to inherit his title. That was far better than being a mere concubine to the fourth prince. Tang Cheng nodded in agreement. The original owner's mother was the Marquis of Nanyang's most cherished woman, his white moonlight, so this illegitimate daughter was more pampered than even the legitimate young lady, growing up with an ambitious spirit and dreams of marrying into the royal family to one day stand above others. Tang Cheng herself was also a proud noblewoman, and though she had a fertility score of 0 and might never marry, she had never once considered being anyone's concubine. Actually, marrying Lord Wen and becoming his lady would be a fine choice. The Duke of Zhenguo, Lord Wen's father, was deeply trusted by the emperor and wielded considerable power. Yet to the original owner, no matter how influential the duke's household was, they were still subjects, far below the prestige of the royal family. Unable to swallow her pride, the original owner, emboldened by the Marquis's favor, acted recklessly as she planned to abort the child and marry the fourth prince, a pursuit as futile as a moth to a flame. "Zhenju, I'm hungry. Go to the kitchen and bring me something to eat," Tang Cheng said, her tone light and cheerful as she thought of her future filled with good food and her child. She brushed her hand over her stomach, feeling incredibly fortunate. If her family knew she had survived the spaceship explosion and crossed time to find herself with a child of her own, they would surely be overjoyed. Zhenju quickly took her leave while the maid Shanhu timidly entered the room, her gaze flickering with a hint of secret delight as she noted the empty porcelain bowl in Zhenju's hands. "Miss, did you drink that bowl of medicine?" Shanhu asked. Zhenju, who hadn't left yet, shot Shanhu a fierce glare. Her mistress had just abandoned the idea of drinking the abortive medicine, and she wouldn't let Shanhu's smooth words undo that progress. She looked anxiously at her mistress. Tang Cheng glanced at Shanhu, the maid who had encouraged the original owner to abort the child. "I'm not drinking it. I've decided to keep the baby." Shanhu had a delicate, fair face and lively eyes, and her sweet talk had made her the original owner's favorite maid. Unlike Zhenju, who was loyal to the Marquis, Shanhu had been purchased by the original owner herself. Tang Cheng didn't like her. This Shanhu was clearly not one to keep her place. Shanhu paled in shock and protested urgently. "Miss, you mustn't keep this child. If the fourth prince finds out, you'll lose any chance with him forever." In truth, rumors had already spread widely outside, but Shanhu, knowing Tang Cheng was confined to her courtyard by the Marquis, tried to deceive her. Zhenju, standing nearby, angrily cut in. "Shanhu, how much longer are you planning to fool Miss? News of her pregnancy is already out. Of course the fourth prince knows. Miss is now Lord Wen's fiancée, and the child she carries is his. By bringing up the fourth prince and urging her to abort, you clearly have ulterior motives. If not for the child, Mrs. Illegitimate status would have forced her to marry into the Duke's family as a mere concubine. But with the baby, thanks to the Marquis's efforts, the Duke and Duchess had agreed to welcome Miss as the main wife. This was an incredible fortune. Seeing her mistress's expressionless face, Shanhu felt a chill run through her. Hastily, she tried to defend herself. Zhenju, I'm only thinking of Mrs.'s best interests. Miss clearly loves the fourth prince, yet she's carrying Lord Wen's child. As long as the baby remains, she'll have no chance with the fourth prince. Zhenju, growing anxious, interjected. Miss, you know well enough how the fourth prince regards you. You mustn't listen to Shanhu and consider aborting the child. Tang Cheng listened as Shanhu endlessly brought up the fourth prince and the child she carried, desperately trying to persuade her to abort. Shanhu truly wouldn't give up. Enough. Stop arguing. I've already decided to keep this child. Zhenju, let me know when father returns later. Zhenju's face lit up with relief and joy as she nodded eagerly. Understood, Mississippi, don't worry. Shanhu opened her mouth as if to say something, but one sharp look from Tang Cheng made her swallow her words. Silently fuming, Shanhu wondered what kind of nonsense Zhenju had fed Miss to make her decide to keep Lord Wen's child. You may both leave now. Tang Cheng waved her hand, noting how Shanhu looked back with each step, a frown forming on her brow. When the Marquis returned, she would certainly have to tell him about Shanhu and arrange for her to be dismissed. With the Marquis's influence, he would know how to handle a troublesome maid like Shanhu. The original owner had been blindly swayed by Shanhu's flattery, treating her as a trusted confidant, but Tang Cheng was no fool and could see Shanhu's ill intentions clearly. In this ancient world where male authority was supreme and a woman's reputation was everything, the original owner's name had already been tainted by rumors of arrogance, spoiled behavior, and lack of education, but Tang Cheng didn't mind. Better that than compromising her dignity. For Shanhu, the original owner's most trusted maid, to constantly scheme to have her abort the child. Her intentions were clear as day. A scheming maid who wouldn't stay in her place had no business remaining by her side. Tang Cheng felt that selling off Shanhu, a mere maid, required no evidence. It was only natural for a mistress to dismiss her servant at will. Her father, the Marquis who doted on the original owner, would certainly support her decision. As she gently touched her abdomen, a handsome jade-like face came to mind. She was more than pleased with the baby's father's genes. As for the fourth prince, who had once been the original owner's obsession, he was now nothing more than a distant memory, entirely irrelevant. Half an hour later, Zhenju returned with a radiant smile, leading a few other maids who carefully arranged a selection of hot dishes before her. The spread was beautifully presented, each dish refined and the pastries delectable, filling the room with an enticing aroma. Miss, please enjoy your meal. Indeed, as the most favored fourth young lady of the Marquis's household, every dish was prepared with meticulous care. Despite her tarnished reputation and the scandal of an out-of-wedlock pregnancy, her standing in the household remained unshaken. The Marquis had indulged her endlessly. Tang Cheng was pleased with this level of affection. She herself had been her family's beloved daughter, doted upon by her parents and brothers, never once enduring mistreatment. Happily, she savored each bite of the delicious meal, sipping the rich, steaming fish soup. This new life in the Marquis's household was not so different from the one she'd known before. The quality of life hadn't diminished one bit. Tang Cheng was quite satisfied. When she first took over this body, the original owner hadn't yet disappeared. After Tang Cheng accessed her memories, the original owner eagerly left, intent on reincarnating in Tang Cheng's world. Tang Cheng couldn't forget the disdainful words the original owner left before departing. This body is tainted. I don't want it. You can have it if you like. If not, it's no concern of mine. I'll never take it back. She'd abandoned her unborn child and the father who doted on her without a second thought. Tang Cheng couldn't understand the original owner's choices. Had she not left, Tang Cheng wouldn't have been able to stay here and would have faced true death. But since the original owner was adamant about leaving her own body, Tang Cheng gladly took over, ready to clean up the mess and bring the baby into the world. After savoring her meal, Tang Cheng let out a contented sigh. Staying here was undoubtedly the best decision. A smile played at her lips, unable to be contained. Jianan Marquis Residence, Shuahong Courtyard. The maid Yao Hong quietly reported. Miss, there is news from Shanhu, the maid at the Nanyang Marquis Residence. She says that 4th Miss Tang has suddenly changed her mind and decided to keep the child. She did not take the abortion medicine. Keep the child? Lu Jintong's eyes flickered, a trace of mockery crossing her gaze. That foolish Tang Cheng with her lofty ambitions would never keep Wen Huayan's child. After all, she had always wanted to be with the 4th prince. There was no way she would willingly marry Lord Wen. In her past life, that fool Tang Cheng had been lucky enough to succeed in her scheme, entering the 4th prince's residence as she'd hoped. Protected by a trusted confidant of the Nanyang Marquis, she had given birth to several of the 4th prince's children. The irony was that, in the end, that fool had caused her own demise. Thinking about it, Tang Cheng had been sheltered by the Nanyang Marquis even after her marriage, and after her death, her children were still protected by him. Lu Jintong felt a surge of bitterness at the unfairness of it all. Why did Tang Cheng, a useless woman, have such good luck? Here she was, a talented and beautiful legitimate daughter of the Jianan Marquis residence, yet she had been mistreated in the 4th prince's manner, enduring humiliation and ridicule from that fool Tang Cheng. This time at that banquet, she had sabotaged Tang Cheng's plans to drug her. Tang Cheng's luck was simply too good. She should have been defiled by some lecherous, decadent young noble, but instead, it turned out to be Wen Huayan from the Duke of Zhenguo's family. Wen Huayan, the only legitimate son of the Duke of Zhenguo. Years ago, the Duke of Zhenguo had been injured while saving the emperor, and with his health compromised, he only had one son, Wen Huayan, and 2 illegitimate daughters. Wen Huayan, the heir to the title, was as handsome as jade, gentle and refined with impeccable character. He was the ideal husband in the eyes of countless noblewomen. The only flaw was that, due to a plot against the duke's wife during her pregnancy, Wen Huayan was born with poison in his system. After being treated, several elderly doctors from the Imperial Medical Bureau predicted that his future descendants would be difficult to conceive. Thinking about the ridicule she had endured in her past life, Lu Jintong certainly wouldn't stand idly by while Tang Cheng, that fool, gave birth to Wen Huayan's child. She couldn't allow Tang Cheng, this overly fertile fool, to marry into the Duke of Zhenguo's family. In her previous life, Lu Jintong had never heard that Wen Huayan had any children. She didn't want to risk Tang Cheng getting a good husband just because she intervened. Shanhu, that little maid, couldn't even handle something as simple as this. What a shame about that abortion medicine. Tang Cheng was truly lucky to escape yet another disaster. Lu Jintong seethed with hatred for Shanhu's incompetence. Yao Hong, tell Shanhu that if she convinces Tang Cheng to have an abortion or gets her to drink the sterilization potion, I'll make sure she loses her slave status and becomes a madam of a high-ranking official's family. Lu Jintong said coldly, as her dark eyes gleaming with a hint of malice. With this promise dangling over her, Shanhu, driven by ambition, would undoubtedly do everything in her power to see this matter through. If Tang Cheng weren't the most beloved daughter of the Duke of Nanyang, with someone constantly protecting her, Lu Jintong would have taken action the moment she reincarnated and destroyed Tang Cheng. There would have been no need to bribe a mere maid like Shanhu to help. Fortunately, Tang Cheng, that fool, trusted Shanhu deeply. Yao Hong's eyes flickered briefly before she lowered her voice and replied, "Understood," then respectfully withdrew. Lu Jintong gazed out the window at the blooming flowers with indifferent expression. Tang Cheng was just a minor target for revenge. That fool would end up destroying herself, even if Lu Jintong didn't intervene. But she couldn't let it go. Lu Jintong hadn't forgotten how, in her past life, Tang Cheng had arrogantly mocked and humiliated her. Oh! News spread quickly throughout the peony garden. The 4th Miss, Tang Cheng's decision to keep the child, immediately became the talk of the entire Duke of Nanyang's household. Reactions were mixed. Some were shocked, some were curious, others happy, and some disappointed. The 4th Miss was the Marquis' most beloved daughter, and every move she made was closely watched by everyone in the estate. Just a few days ago, when the 4th Miss suddenly vomited after drinking fish soup, the worried Duke had summoned a doctor, and the news of her pregnancy was soon revealed. At the time, the 4th Miss had desperately wanted to abort the child, causing quite a stir. Now, the whole capital knew that the 4th Miss of the Duke of Nanyang was pregnant before marriage. Unfortunately, the Duke of Nanyang, who usually granted the fourth Miss's every wish, firmly refused this time. The fourth Miss was furious and threw a fit. Being delicate and afraid of pain, she didn't dare to try any risky methods to end the pregnancy herself. Instead, she secretly followed Shanhu's advice and had her buy abortion medicine in secret. Everyone in the household was fully aware of what was happening and watched her bring about her own misfortune with a sense of detachment. Some even subtly encouraged it behind the scenes. Tang Cheng questioned Zhenju about the situation in the estate, and, after reflecting on the original owner's memories, understood her predicament well. She gently touched her belly and murmured, "Poor baby, not even born yet and already so many people want you gone." Shanhu was a clear threat, but Tang Cheng couldn't understand where she found the nerve. There might even be a hidden force behind her actions. If she hadn't arrived, the original owner would probably have already taken that ominous black abortion medicine. "Miss, the estate's chef has prepared nourishing chicken soup. Please drink it while it's hot." After realizing that the miss had decided to keep the child, Zhenju happily prepared some nourishing soups for her. When Tang Cheng heard it was chicken soup, a flicker of anticipation brightened her eyes. She eagerly took the bowl and drank it. The soup was rich and delicious, worthy of the chef's reputation, even surpassing the best interstellar cuisine she'd known. It was so tasty that she found herself wanting more. "Miss, the Duchess of Zhenguo has sent 2 experienced nannies to care for you. Would you like to keep them?" Zhenju, seeing that the miss was in a good mood after drinking the soup, carefully brought up the matter. After the news of her pregnancy broke, the Duchess had sent nannies, but the miss had angrily dismissed them. Now with 2 more being offered, Zhenju wasn't sure if she would accept them this time. Tang Cheng inwardly marveled at her luck. She truly got exactly what she needed. "Keep them. I happen to be short of nannies right now, so their timing is perfect. Zhenju, bring them in." The baby in her belly couldn't afford any risks. Medical knowledge here was primitive, and household infighting was ruthless. One misstep could mean the loss of her child. With experienced nannies there would be more security. In the treacherous back courtyards of ancient estates, miscarriages and deaths were commonplace. She needed to protect her unborn child. As for the staff in Peony Pavilion, the Duke of Nanyang had decreed that all arrangements would be under Tang Cheng's control, keeping even the Duchess Zhang from interfering. Unfortunately, the original owner of this body enjoyed the empty flattery of her servants. These servants were opportunistic and easily swayed, and who knew how many were actually spies for others in the household. The original owner was wrapped around Shanhu's little finger, and took her everywhere she went. Besides Zhenju, Shanhu was the only one allowed to serve closely, blocking any other servants or even nannies from approaching. Thankfully, her father, the Duke, had forced Zhenju into the household to keep an eye on things in Peony Pavilion. Without that, Shanhu would have completely taken over the place. Shanhu, however, was an ungrateful wretch, having pocketed no small amount of gold and jewels from the original owner and constantly pressuring her to end the pregnancy. Tang Cheng held nothing but disdain for Shanhu. The original host had a spoiled and prideful nature with lofty ambitions. Yet before Tang Cheng's arrival she had never harmed anyone, nor did she have blood on her hands. Aside from wanting to end her pregnancy, she simply relied on her father's indulgence to cause mischief which annoyed others to no end. Zhenju cheerfully agreed and returned about a quarter of an hour later with the 2 women in tow, trailed by an anxious Shanhu. Shanhu felt a surge of unease when her mistress suddenly changed plans. The thought of the mysterious figure's promises made her heart race. Who wouldn't want to rise in status and bask in wealth and privilege? This was the perfect opportunity, one she intended to seize fully. Upon hearing that the Duchess of Zhenguo had sent 2 Momo again, she had tried to dismiss them under the guise of following her mistress's wishes. But Zhenju intervened, insisting on consulting Tang Cheng first. Shanhu inwardly cursed, hoping her mistress would dismiss the Momo as she had done before. "Greetings, 4th Miss." The 2 Momo, with calm expressions and gentle dispositions, introduced themselves in a steady, respectful tone that made a good impression. They showed no trace of disdain over Tang Cheng's unwed pregnancy, or the impact on her reputation. Clearly, the Duchess of Zhenguo had chosen them carefully, matching them to Tang Cheng's temperament. Tang Cheng was quite satisfied. The Duchess of Zhenguo clearly valued the child in her womb. Zhenju watched her mistress's expression with bated breath. "Miss, the fourth prince," Shanhu pleaded, casting Tang Cheng a hopeful look as she once more mentioned the prince she was so enamored with, hoping Tang Cheng would reconsider keeping the two Momo. With them around, persuading her mistress to terminate the pregnancy would become much more difficult. Shanhu wasn't foolish enough to take matters into her own hands and harm the child directly. Too many eyes were watching. If Tang Cheng were to lose her temper and the Marquis investigated, she'd be doomed. Shanhu wasn't one to risk her life so recklessly. Hearing Shanhu's words, the two Momo exchanged the faintest of frowns, aware that the fourth miss of the Marquis of Nanyang's household placed deep trust in this maid named Shanhu. "Silence!" Tang Cheng commanded with a cold snort. Shanhu's face flushed with disbelief, her mouth opening in shock as a flicker of panic creeping into her heart. Although Tang Cheng's moods could be unpredictable, she had always trusted her implicitly. But now, "Miss," Shanhu tried to protest, unwilling to believe her mistress would turn against her so easily. After all, she was her most trusted maid. Zhenju stood to the side, eyes wide with surprise. "What are you standing around for? Get out!" Tang Cheng snapped, filled with loathing for Shanhu, who had continually tried to persuade her to get rid of the child. She felt a strong urge to sell Shanhu off on the spot. But remembering the state of her courtyard, where aside from Zhenju, there wasn't a single person she could truly trust, Tang Cheng decided to hold off. With so few reliable people around, dismissing a servant could easily create hidden dangers. Who knew if they'd continue to act in secret or be exploited by others with ulterior motives? It would be safer to leave such matters to the Marquis himself rather than Zhenju. Perhaps he could take the opportunity to reorganize the courtyard as well. Yes. Shanhu, unable to mask her shame and anger in front of Zhenju and the two Momo, withdrew reluctantly. Tang Cheng's decision was immensely satisfying to Zhenju. The two Momo, one surnamed Gao and the other Chao, were both experienced in caring for expectant mothers. Tang Cheng didn't ask too many questions and readily decided to keep them. "I'll be counting on both of you," she said politely. Gao Momo and Chao Momo quickly assured her they were honored, inwardly surprised by the fourth Mrs. attitude. Their sole duty was to care for this once spoiled and headstrong young woman, as long as she didn't attempt to harm the heir's unborn child. Seeing her so cooperative was beyond their expectations. Both Momo breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Outside, Shanhu, who had been eavesdropping, wore a dark expression. With the two Momo from the Duke's residence now installed, convincing Tang Cheng to end her pregnancy had become nearly impossible. Her dreams of becoming a mistress herself were now crushed, and Shanhu's resentment turned toward the fourth miss for her sudden change of heart. In the Nanyang Marquis estate, news from Peony Courtyard always spread the fastest. When word got out that Tang Cheng had decided to keep the two Momo sent by the madam of the Duke's household, everyone in the estate was astonished. It seemed that the fourth miss truly intended to keep the heir's child, much to the disappointment of those secretly hoping to see her bring about her own ruin. They had been so close, just a little bit more. How useless Shanhu had been. In the main courtyard, Madame Zhang, the Nanyang Marquis's wife, listened as her trusted Chan Momo reported the latest from Peony Courtyard. When she heard that Tang Cheng had kept the Momo without Madame Zhang's approval, she didn't bat an eye. In the past, she might have been frustrated, but she'd since come to a realization. Tang Cheng, a girl without her own mother and born of a concubine, posed no threat to her own children's standing. Sooner or later, Tang Cheng would be married off, so why bother? If the Marquis wanted to spoil her, so be it. Thus, Madame Zhang complied with the Marquis's wishes by ignoring Tang Cheng's antics, and even allowed her to select her own servants in Peony Courtyard. This approach pleased the Marquis, who in turn, held even greater regard for Madame Zhang's children, which was an unexpected benefit for her. Madame Zhang was clever. She went along with the Marquis's intentions, never interfering with Tang Cheng's requests, and even let her choose her own staff in Peony Courtyard. In this way, she concentrated all the resentment from the other members of the household onto Tang Cheng, shielding her from many schemes and turning Tang Cheng into a convenient target. When attending social gatherings, Madame Zhang would even sigh and complain about her position that even as the Marquis's wife, she couldn't discipline a mere concubine's daughter. Naturally, her fellow noblewomen sympathized with Madame Zhang's plight. Now nearly everyone in the capital knew of how the Marquis of Nanyang had spoiled a willful, headstrong daughter of lesser birth. Tang Cheng listened as her mother's trusted Momo talked about her fourth sister. Memories from the story she'd read began to resurface, how her fourth sister had been nothing more than a tragic pawn, destroyed by the reborn heroine. Fourth sister had been dealt an excellent hand in life, a marquis father who adored her to the skies. Yet she'd managed to squander it all, facing miserable fates in both her past and current lives. And now, with the heroine reborn, her end would be even more pitiful. It wasn't only fourth sister who suffered, her own original self in this world eventually went down the same path, becoming an enemy of the reborn heroine. She married a man who was hopelessly infatuated with the heroine, and he helped torment her on the heroine's behalf. Her own fate was equally dismal. Thankfully, she'd arrived just in time before any encounters with the reborn heroine or that infatuated male suitor. She wanted to blend in quietly in this ancient world, but she wasn't about to keep a low profile by marrying the original's intended, an utterly mediocre man, aside from his family background. Tang Cheng pursed her lips. When she'd first read the Rebirth and Revenge novel, she'd been smitten with Lord Wan, the male lead. In the story, her fourth sister, swayed by the disloyal mate Shanhu, aborted Lord Wan's child, which marked the beginning of her tragic downfall. If only she had taken over fourth sister's role instead. Lord Wan was the epitome of a male god. She couldn't understand what the author had been thinking, creating a plot just to incite readers to despise her male god's disgraceful fate at the hands of Tang Cheng. Back when she'd read the story, she'd practically wished for Tang Cheng's early demise at the hands of the reborn heroine. With this thought, Tang Cheng immediately wanted to meet her fourth sister. She'd been in this world for over half a month already and hadn't yet met this vain, spoiled, domineering girl. Mother, I'll go over to Peony Garden to see fourth sister. Thinking of the name Peony Garden, Tang Cheng's eye twitched slightly. The book had mentioned its origin. Fourth sister had named it herself, enamored with the peony as a symbol of wealth and prosperity. She'd even tried to raise peonies to appear refined, but her plants never survived. She'd become the subject of quite a few jokes over it. Madame Zhang frowned upon hearing this and sternly warned, Xiner, you and fourth sister have never been close. Now is not the time to pretend you're concerned for sisterly bonds. Stay out of it, or if Tang Cheng gets herself into trouble, you'll be the one blamed, with all the dirt thrown at you. Tang Cheng was carrying the legitimate grandson of the Duke of Zhenguo. Unless someone could secretly urge her to ruin things herself, no one should interfere directly. If anything got traced back, it would mean facing not only the Marquis's fury but also the Duke's revenge. Simply wasn't worth the risk. Madam is right. Young miss, look at the other family members in the estate. Who among them is going out of their way to visit fourth miss in Peony Garden? Everyone avoids her as much as possible. Chun Momo chimed in, agreeing with Madame Zhang. Peony Garden was now under intense scrutiny, with countless eyes observing and people making discreet moves. The Duke's distant nephews, especially those who coveted his title and would prefer that the heir, young Master One, remain childless to secure it for one of their own sons. Otherwise, why would the Duke's wife have sent 2 experienced attendants to protect the child in Tang Cheng's womb? An unwed, pregnant, illegitimate daughter of the Marquis's family with a ruined reputation and questionable character. Who would care about her at all, except for the child she's carrying? Madame Zhang carefully explained each of the stakes involved, with Chun Momo adding her own insights. Tang Cheng wasn't foolish. After hearing her mother and Chun Momo's explanations, she was almost scared into a cold sweat. She realized she'd been too naive, relying on her knowledge of the plot as a cheat. She only knew that her fourth sister was infatuated with the fourth prince and recklessly aborted Lord Shizi's child. But she hadn't realized there were so many hidden forces at work behind the scenes. Even if fourth sister decided to keep Lord Wen's child, her situation would still be fraught with danger. One wrong move and her child could be lost. At this point, Tang Cheng felt a twinge of sympathy for fourth sister and gave up on visiting her. Instead, she listened to Madame Zhang's advice and stayed in her own courtyard, tending to the flowers and plants. Tang Cheng's courtyard was full of vibrant blooms, brimming with life, all thanks to her cheat, her plant-based ability. This was her source of confidence and her greatest secret. Miss, this morning fourth Miss sent someone to say she wants the three-colored peony you just cultivated. Tang Cheng's maid Jin Shu hesitated for a moment before carefully relaying fourth sister's request. Tang Cheng's face darkened. Fourth sister thought she could casually take away the mutated three-colored peony that Tang Cheng had nurtured with her plant-based abilities for half a month. She had quite the appetite, but Tang Cheng had no intention of indulging her. Who spread the news about my three-colored peony? I don't know, Mississippi. Find out who spread the word. Tang Cheng lowered her gaze. The fact that she had cultivated the three-colored peony was supposed to be a secret, yet somehow it had leaked. So, it was also possible that the reborn heroine already knew about it. She hoped it hadn't raised any suspicion with Lu Jintong. Tang Cheng had no desire to get involved with the heroine. In the entire Nanyang Marquis household, only Tang Cheng had a feud with her. Tang Cheng had no intention of getting caught up in it. Yes, Mississippi. Jin Shu responded and left. At this moment, Tang Cheng was no longer interested in using her plant-based ability to nurture the rare flowers in her courtyard. She decided to hide the three-colored peony and create an accident to distract Tang Cheng, hoping to avoid the biased Marquis demanding it later. After switching to a new heart, Tang Cheng's mind and focus were entirely on taking care of her baby, leaving behind the trivial matters of the original owner that she had forgotten by now. Only Tang Cheng, however, felt the tension as if facing a great enemy. At this moment, Tang Cheng was eating fresh fruit while silently planning her future. Whether in her past life or this one, she had always been a pampered young madam, living boldly and carefree. Of course, living freely also required the right foundation. Tang Cheng squinted her eyes and decided that once the baby was born, she would resume training her physical skills. Living without strength felt too insecure. This body had a decent talent for physical skills, comparable to her own previous abilities, which Tang Cheng found very satisfactory. She couldn't understand what the original owner was thinking. Despite having access to her memories and the ability to practice physical skills, she had been distracted by the technological advancements of the empire in her memory, abandoning the loving Marquis father and the baby she carried, happily choosing to be reborn instead. Tang Cheng found it hard to comprehend. But before resuming her physical training, she decided to first strengthen her physique. Tang Cheng acted on her thoughts immediately. After finishing the delicious fresh fruits, she instructed Zhenju to bring paper and ink. Zhenju paused for a moment but said nothing, simply bringing the items to Tang Cheng. Miss, are you going to practice calligraphy? Zhenju asked curiously. It was a bit embarrassing to admit, but the miss had studied with the female tutor for many years, and aside from recognizing all the characters, her handwriting was worse than that of a 6-year-old child. As for other talents, she had none. Everyone outside knew that the illegitimate fourth miss of the Nanyang Marquis family was uneducated. A spoiled, willful beauty with no real skills. Now, when the miss who normally disliked studying suddenly asked for paper and ink, Zhenju couldn't help but feel a little hopeful, wondering if the miss was planning to improve herself. No, I just thought of a very useful medicinal formula. I'll write it down and you can go to the pharmacy to get the ingredients. I need to make some medicine. Tang Cheng casually replied, then took the brush and scribbled out the ingredients she needed. She was still not accustomed to the frail body she now had. A weak mother would affect the baby's potential. The body-strengthening potion was the only one she knew how to make. In the Galactic Empire, the body-strengthening potion was the most popular and best-selling remedy, essential for pregnant women. Tang Cheng was glad she had learned how to make the potion out of curiosity. Now it was coming in handy. When Zhenju heard that the miss was going to make another of those strange potions with an unfamiliar formula, she was nearly scared half to death, her face turning pale. Both Chao Momo and Gao Momo's expressions changed. The two had known Tang Cheng's temperament very well before coming here. After all the trouble, she had finally decided to keep the heir of the young lord. They had just managed to breathe a sigh of relief, but now it seemed they were back to square one. It was clear they couldn't hold out too much hope. Fourth miss, most of the formulas outside are unreliable. If you want to learn to make medicine, you should seek out a skilled physician to learn from, Gao Momo advised. The two nannies dared not suggest that Tang Cheng focus on nurturing the baby, fearing that she might change her mind and choose to abort. Don't worry. These are the ingredients for the body-strengthening potion. My body is too weak right now, and this potion will be good for me, Tang Cheng explained confidently. With the body-strengthening potion, I'm sure I'll be able to have a smooth pregnancy and give birth without any issues. She blew on the ink to dry it, looking completely confident, ignoring the ugly handwriting on the paper. She had never practiced calligraphy, and the original owner's handwriting was even worse, but Tang Cheng didn't feel embarrassed by it. Gao Momo and Chao Momo were getting anxious. Fourth miss. What kind of body-strengthening potion was this? They had never heard of such a thing. Could it be one of those conmen tricks from wandering Taoists? Considering Tang Cheng's temperament, it wouldn't be surprising if she had been deceived. What worried them most was that Tang Cheng might become obsessed with it. Not only would she go ahead and try to make it herself, but she might even drink it. Was she trying to ruin herself? Could she just settle down for once? If she weren't carrying the young lord's child, no one would care if she brought harm upon herself. But now they feared the baby might be harmed in the process. Enough, I know what I'm doing. Zhenju, it's getting late. Go get the medicine. Tang Cheng interrupted, cutting off their concerns. She was always this decisive and willful, just like the original owner. Zhenju was both angry and anxious, unsure whether to argue or comply, stuck in a difficult situation. Meanwhile, Shanhu, who had been quiet like a chicken, quickly stepped forward, her eyes darting nervously. Miss, let me fetch the medicine for you. Shanhu, do you know what you're doing? Zhenju glared at Shanhu, furious that she had interfered. Shanhu caught sight of the unwavering expression on her mistress's face and secretly rejoiced. With a scheming smile, she subtly undermined and criticized Zhenju. Zhenju, have you forgotten that we're all the Mrs. servants? How dare you not listen to the Mrs. orders? Who exactly is the master here? This was the perfect opportunity to act, and she couldn't let it slip by. From what Shanhu knew of the miss, this remark would at least sow some distrust or even disgust in her mistress's heart, even if it didn't restore her full trust. Shanhu gave Zhenju a knowing, malicious look, patiently waiting for the aftermath. Tang Cheng had already planned to deal with Shanhu, the malicious maid who had plotted to convince the original owner to abort. Now, hearing that she still dared to scheme in front of her, a surge of anger flooded her delicate face. Shanhu, shut up. You have no place to speak here. Zhenju, go fetch the medicine. Tang Cheng recalled the scene from the original owner's memories where Shanhu, a mere maid, had manipulated her, causing her to go around in circles. To protect the maid, the original owner had even threatened suicide, shouting that if Shanhu died, she would die too. Tang Cheng was appalled, speechless. The original owner, a pampered young lady, had no idea how her mind worked. Fortunately, Shanhu didn't know about the original owner's foolish actions, or she might have become even bolder. From Shanhu's behavior, it seemed like she wasn't acting too out of line, likely under the warning of the Marquis. Shanhu, who had been repeatedly scolded by her mistress today, was stunned, her eyes full of disbelief. A wave of panic suddenly rose in her heart. She no longer dared to speak. In her eyes, her mistress had never been someone who valued relationships. Once things didn't go her way, she would cast people aside like a worn-out shoe. Shanhu thought of the mysterious person's promise. Until she achieved her goal, she couldn't afford to be discarded by her mistress. She gritted her teeth, enduring the humiliation, filled with resentment. Ever since she was bought by her mistress, she had never been treated this way. What a ridiculous miss. Claiming to trust only her, what a lie. Once she got rid of that child. At this moment, Shanhu still had no idea that her clueless mistress had changed, and she continued to dream her naive dreams. Zhenju, seeing the mistress reprimand Shanhu, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness the mistress wasn't deceived by such a scheming little person. Zhenju didn't dare to persuade her anymore. Taking advantage of the fact that the young lady hadn't yet been coaxed back by Shanhu, she quickly grabbed the list of medicinal herbs and left. It was better to go along with the young lady for now. She would inform the Marquis when he returned. Zhenju believed that the Marquis wouldn't let the young lady act recklessly. The two old maidservants exchanged a glance, then let out a bitter laugh and fell silent. Third Miss Tang was truly willful and troublesome. They were just servants, not even directly in the Marquis' service, so no matter how much they said, Third Miss Tang wouldn't listen. In fact, they might even be dismissed for speaking out. Didn't they see how even Third Miss Tang's favorite maid Shan Hu had been scolded? The room fell silent, and Tang Cheng was pleased with the result. She sat gracefully on the beauty couch, enjoying the delicious snacks. As for the fleeting resentment in Shan Hu's eyes, she didn't give it a second thought. Later, as evening approached, Marquis of Nanyang Tang Zijin returned home. Just in time, Zhenju came back with the medicinal herbs. Servant greets the Marquis. Zhenju said, quickly and respectfully bowing. Has Cheng'er been causing trouble today? When it came to his beloved daughter, Tang Zijin couldn't help but think of the distressing episode where she'd threatened to harm herself over the abortion, leaving him with a headache. He sighed, feeling helpless, hoping that Cheng'er would understand his concerns someday. In the eyes of Marquis of Nanyang, rather than his beloved daughter's obsession with marrying the fourth prince, it was actually Lord Wen from the Duke of Zhenguo's family who was more suited for Cheng'er, especially since Cheng'er was fortunate enough to be carrying Lord Wen's child. This was her leverage. Despite the negative reputation that came with being an unmarried pregnant young lady, the Marquis still decided to give his precious daughter his full support and protect her as best as he could. Reporting to the Marquis, Miss Cheng'er has changed her mind and decided to keep Lord Wen's child. She has also kept the nanny sent by the Duchess of Zhen's estate. Zhenju quickly replied. Hearing this, Marquis of Nanyang sighed in relief. However, Miss Cheng'er suddenly said she was too weak and wanted to concoct a strengthening tonic. She wrote out a list of herbs for me to purchase. Zhenju continued, raising the large bundle in her hands. These are the herbs Miss Cheng'er asked me to buy. The physician from Jihitang said that while the herbs Miss Cheng'er requested are unusual, none of them are toxic, Zhenju added, having specifically inquired to ensure their safety. The Marquis's gaze fell upon the bundle where a bone could be seen poking out from the top. Bone is also an ingredient? Marquis, this is tiger bone. It costs quite a bit of money, Zhenju replied, her face showing a pained expression. The Marquis nodded and said lightly, Ah, tiger bone. You can buy a few more to soak in wine for Cheng'er to help her body. Zhenju. Wasn't the Marquis's focus a bit off? Was he really not going to stop Miss Cheng'er from making this tonic? Zhenju was stunned. The Marquis had always pampered his daughter and understood her nature well. He didn't take her making a tonic seriously, thinking it would be like brewing medicine. She would just tell someone to make it for her and perhaps lose interest in a few days. There was no real reason to worry. However, the Marquis did decide he would find a reliable physician to stay at the Peony Garden, just in case. As he thought this, he began heading toward the Peony Garden with Zhenju and the young servant following behind. The servants in the household who were always well informed were accustomed to the sight of the Marquis heading straight to the Peony Garden as soon as he returned home. Tang Cheng pressed her lips together, a hint of sourness rising in her chest. It had been over half a month since she came here, and despite putting in a lot of effort to please the Marquis, there had been no effect. In the Marquis's eyes, it seemed the only one who mattered was the foolish fourth sister, Tang Cheng. In the end, it was Tang Cheng who, in her pursuit of revenge, confronted the female protagonist, dragging the entire Marquis's estate down with her. Tang Cheng had hoped to save the Marquis's estate, but it seemed that the Marquis's path was no longer viable. As for trying to change Tang Cheng hadn't even considered it. The female protagonist was reborn and already had a grudge with Tang Cheng. It was inevitable that they would clash, and Tang Cheng didn't want to get involved. Looks like I'll have to rely on myself after all, Tang Cheng murmured to herself. Peony Garden. Tang Cheng finally met the Marquis who had once doted on the original owner. The moment she laid eyes on Marquis of Nanyang, her brow furrowed. He looked so much like her father. His face was at least 70 to 80% similar. Come to think of it, she had never seen the original owner's appearance. With that thought, Tang Cheng grabbed a mirror to take a look at how the original owner looked. Upon glancing into the mirror, Tang Cheng was startled. The reflection staring back at her was a face she knew all too well. An exquisitely delicate face, beautiful apricot eyes, and a hint of arrogance between her brows. It all felt so familiar. She was shocked to realize that she looked 90% like the original owner. Tang Cheng. Could this be the fabled destiny? Marquis of Nanyang. He cleared his throat, bringing his precious daughter's attention back to him. Cheng, I'll be dining with you tonight. Tang Cheng snapped back to reality, casually putting away the mirror and flashing a bright smile. She happily walked over and linked her arm with the Marquis. Sounds great, I'd love to have dinner with you, father. For the Marquis, who resembled her father so much and doted on his daughter, Tang Cheng accepted him quite well. Marquis of Nanyang smiled with pleasure at his daughter's affection. Zhenju, forgotten in the background, silently waited, holding the large bundle in her hands. Shanhu stood quietly, not daring to breathe a word. The cold, sweeping glance the Marquis had just cast her way sent a chill down her spine. Every time the Marquis came to see Miss Cheng, Shanhu was nervous, making her walk on eggshells. This was also one of the reasons why Shanhu, who was so highly valued and trusted by Tang Cheng, couldn't wait to betray her. Father, I've found a great recipe. I'm going to make a tonic to strengthen the body. Once it's ready, you should try it too. It'll help you stay strong and healthy. Tang Cheng thought about how short people's lifespans were in this era and decided to help her greatest support, the Marquis, live longer. It's not something you drink? Marquis of Nanyang asked, surprised, though his expression remained casual. It's just soaking in some so-called strengthening tonic. Zhenju had already said the herbs were non-toxic, so it probably wouldn't do much, just like a bath, really. After all, his precious daughter wasn't the patient type. Zhenju looked utterly hopeless. The Marquis's reaction wasn't quite right. The two Momo. It can be drunk, or it can be used as a medicinal bath. Tang Cheng couldn't help but laugh at her father's initial response. The tonic is a bit potent, so we'll start with a medicinal bath first. Once your body gets used to it, then you can drink it. Tang Cheng said. Father, don't worry. I won't do anything reckless. I still need to have the baby safely. She added, speaking with such seriousness that the two Momo couldn't help but twitch their lips. Marquis of Nanyang was far from reassured. He hadn't expected the tonic to be something that could actually be consumed. Cheng, where did you get this recipe? Without even blinking, Tang Cheng replied. I think it was from a Taoist priest. It's been a while, so I can't quite remember, but it was from someone unimportant. Don't worry about it, father, as long as the recipe works. Marquis of Nanyang's brow twitched. You can't remember who gave it to you, but you still remember the recipe? The Marquis's entire demeanor shifted. Cheng, you're carrying twins now. Be careful with anything you take. The two Momo have plenty of experience. Listen to their advice. The two Momo, and Momo and Chow Momo, nodded in agreement. Why not just focus on the pregnancy and take it easy? Why go and stir up all this nonsense? Tang Cheng wasn't at all offended by the Marquis's lack of trust. She knew he was just concerned for her. Father, don't worry. If the medicinal bath doesn't work, I won't drink it. Taking a medicinal bath is fine, but it should be checked by a physician first to make sure it's safe. Marquis of Nanyang felt a headache coming on, thinking about his daughter's stubbornness. He didn't want to scold her, so he sighed. Well, it's just a bath, and with a physician overseeing it, it should be fine. If he stopped her now, who knew if she would secretly try something risky? It was better to let her do it openly. With the Marquis's approval, Tang Cheng was delighted. Father, please send someone to collect martial arts manuals. I'm very interested in martial arts. Once the baby is born, I want to start practicing. Tang Cheng was thinking ahead. She needed martial arts to cover up her physical skills. Marquis of Nanyang, who doted on his daughter, felt a twitch in his brow. All right. Tang Cheng was completely satisfied. Zhenju, on the other hand, looked dejected. She had known this would happen. Shanhu secretly pleased as she thought to herself, keep going, the more you stir things up the better. Maybe even get rid of the child of Lord One. As they were talking, the sky grew dark, and candles were lit in the main hall. The head servant of the kitchen entered, followed by a group of maids, and with them came the tempting aroma of food. Delicacies were laid out on jade plates, their fragrances wafting through the air, the colors rich and inviting. Tang Cheng sat down at the table, enjoying a delicious dinner with Marquis of Nanyang. After dinner, Tang Cheng dismissed the servants and spoke to Marquis of Nanyang about getting rid of Shanhu. Marquis of Nanyang was pleasantly surprised and still uneasy, confirmed once again to ensure his precious daughter wouldn't have second thoughts and cause trouble later. Cheng, Are you really planning to have me deal with Shanhu? Tang Cheng shrugged, looking innocent. Yes, that girl is becoming more and more unbearable. She loves to boss people around and isn't fit to stay by my side as my confidant. Father, you should send more people to assist me. As the young lady of the Marquis's house, how can I only have one maid around? It's too embarrassing. I should at least have 10 or 8 servants. That would be more impressive. Marquis of Nanyang laughed heartily. You're right, Chenger. I'll send you 10 or 8 servants tomorrow. His precious daughter had finally grown tired of Shanhu. Marquis of Nanyang was so pleased that he decided to take care of Shanhu tonight, to avoid any future complications. As for how to deal with her, well, she would simply vanish. That evening, Madame Zhang, the wife of Marquis of Nanyang, learned that Shanhu, the 4th young Mrs. Maid, had been dealt with by the Marquis himself. 1 bowl of poison and Shanhu was gone. Madame Zhang couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. Such a useful pawn lost just like that. The Marquis didn't hide his actions, and word soon spread through the estate. With Shanhu, who had been abusing her power beside the 4th young miss, gone, the reactions from everyone varied. Servants whispered in private, secretly pleased. Tang Cheng was stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. Shanhu, the venomous maid who had been as resilient as a cockroach, had been dealt with so quickly. She had been a pawn bought by the reborn female lead. And now, barely into the story, she was gone. How would the plot progress from here? Tang Cheng was at a loss. Having just finished bathing and preparing for bed, Tang Cheng learned from Zhenju about the Marquis' swift handling of Shanhu. Her almond eyes widened slightly. The Marquis had been decisive. She had expected him to simply dismiss Shanhu, but instead, he had eradicated the potential threat without hesitation. In a cheerful mood, Tang Cheng happily climbed into bed, pulled the covers over herself, and fell into a deep sleep. Neither father nor daughter cared to investigate who had bought Shanhu's loyalty. Anything that could have been gleaned from Shanhu was likely unimportant. What couldn't be extracted was buried deep, perhaps even tied to the Duke of Zhenguo's household. In time it would likely reveal itself. Oh, the main courtyard of the Duke of Zhenguo's residence. The night air was cool, and the candlelight flickered. Madame Min, the wife of the Duke of Zhenguo, was discussing Tang Cheng's situation with her eldest son, Wen Huayan. Huayan, we've received news from the Marquis of Nanyang's household. The 4th young miss, Tang Cheng, has decided to keep the child. I'll have someone pick a good date, and you should marry her as soon as possible. Madame Min wasn't particularly fond of Tang Cheng, who had a notorious reputation as a future daughter-in-law. However, Tang Cheng had the luck of carrying her son's child. The Duke had suffered a serious injury, and Huayan was the only legitimate son, with 2 concubine-born daughters. Unfortunately, Huayan's health was frail, making it difficult for him to have children. The other branches of the family were eyeing the title. Madame Min had no choice but to grudgingly accept Tang Cheng as a potential daughter-in-law who could bear her son an heir. When Huayan was handsome with eyes like bright stars, his tall, slender frame appeared somewhat fragile, but it didn't diminish his beauty. He elegantly picked up his teacup, took a sip of the fragrant tea, and upon hearing his mother's request to marry Tang Cheng, gave a calm nod. Let everything be handled by mother. His union with Miss Tang, the 4th daughter, had been an accident. Everyone in the capital knew how fiercely she had pursued the 4th prince, making a scene at every turn. One was indifferent, the other was unwilling. Since Tang Cheng was carrying his child, Wen Huayan would take responsibility. Madame Min watched her son's calm demeanor and sighed inwardly. She couldn't decide if her son was unlucky or fortunate to be tied to such a reckless, naive, and troublesome girl like Tang Cheng. There's an auspicious date next month. We should set the wedding for then, Madame Min said. It may be rushed, but with the 4th miss of the Tang family pregnant, we can't afford to wait. Wen Huayan nodded. Let mother handle it. I have no objections. Madame Min paused for a moment, then added, I'll go to the Marquis of Nanyang's residence tomorrow. This Tang Cheng girl was far too unpredictable. It would be better to keep her close and watch her closely, lest her grandson be lost before she even gave birth. There were far too many eyes on the 4th miss of the Tang family and her pregnancy. Oh! Unaware of the events happening at the Duke of Zhenguo's residence, Tang Cheng finished her breakfast the next morning. Shortly afterward, Someone from the Marquis of Nanyang's courtyard delivered 20 new servants. These 20 servants were clearly specially trained. Their gazes were calm and respectful as they looked at her. Tang Cheng was quite satisfied. She spotted a small, quiet girl with a composed expression. "From now on, your name will be Shanhu. You'll stay by my side," Tang Cheng declared, pointing at her. "Zhenju. Miss, her name isn't Shanhu." Tang Cheng slightly raised her delicate chin. "From now on, the 4 main maidservants by my side will be named Zhenju, Shanhu, Linglong and Hupa. Simple and easy to remember." The newly appointed Shanhu. "Thank you, miss, for giving me this name." The 2 Momo. "The others. Who knows martial arts? Step forward." Tang Cheng continued to ask. A plain-looking maid stepped forward. "Very good. Your name will be Linglong," Tang Cheng announced. "Thank you, miss, for bestowing the name," the maid responded. Next, Tang Cheng selected a beautiful maid skilled in medicine and named her Hupa. With that, her 4 main maids were complete. As for the remaining 16, maids, grannies, and nannies, Tang Cheng assigned them roles one by one. The entire peony garden underwent a major overhaul. Aside from the laborers, the rest of the servants were all replaced. Next on her agenda, Tang Cheng began preparing to craft her medicinal concoctions. Being meticulous, she personally directed Linglong and Hupa to renovate an empty room in the peony garden for this purpose. In the courtyard under the bright sunshine, Tang Cheng lounged lazily on a chair cushioned with soft padding, watching her servants bustling about. Zhenju and Shanhu attended to her. One served tea, fruit, and refreshments, while the other massaged her shoulders. They ensured Tang Cheng was as comfortable as possible. The 2 Momo. 4th Miss Tang certainly knows how to enjoy life. Zhenju, on the other hand, was delighted. That Shanhu, who always schemed to overshadow her mistress, was finally gone. Now that the Marquis had arranged trustworthy people to serve her, Zhenju could finally breathe a little easier. It's just that her mistress's enthusiasm for crafting medical concoctions left Zhenju deeply troubled. The bustle in the peony garden, which was always under watchful eyes, quickly spread across the manor, stirring a wave of jealousy among the other residents of the backyard. The Marquis of Nanyang was really spoiling the 4th Miss to no end. They grumbled to themselves. Meanwhile, word of Tang Cheng's decision to give her 4 main maids fixed names had also reached everyone's ears. Tang Xian. One Shanhu was gone, and now there's another Shanhu. Ironclad names, ever-changing maids. The power of the plot was truly strong. It even managed to tie things back together. Tang Xian found herself speechless at her 4th sister's antics. But now that Shanhu has been replaced, would the story still unfold the same way? Besides her plain-based ability, Tang Xian's greatest golden finger was her knowledge of the book's plot. Yet now that the golden cheat, the knowledge of events seemed to be slipping away due to Tang Cheng, the so-called ultimate canon fodder. An easy feeling began to gnaw at Tang Xian. Oh, lately, the 4th Miss of the Nanyang Marquis Manor had been the source of endless gossip. First, she had tried to drug the 4th prince, only to end up, by some twist of fate, entangled with the heir of the Zhenguo Duke, Lord Wen. Then came the news of her pregnancy. This dim-witted, talentless, and unremarkable illegitimate daughter of a marquis miraculously became Lord Wen's fiancée. Just days ago, word spread that she was even considering an abortion. Each of these outlandish spectacles had become the talk of the capital, fueling endless chatter over tea and meals. In a bustling tea house, 3 handsome young masters from noble families gathered for a casual chat. They say 4th Miss Tang is foolish and ignorant, but I think she's rather clever. Sticking to just 4 names for her maids, what a way to save effort. Don't you agree, Huayan? The heir to the Dingbei market grinned slyly at Wen Huayan. 4th Miss Tang certainly has her own ideas. Wen Huayan replied calmly, sipping his tea with composure. The eldest young master of the Qi ducal household fanned himself as he let out a stifled chuckle. Once his laughter subsided, his expression turned serious. Huayan, are you truly planning to take 4th Miss Tang as your official wife? When Huayan nodded, everyone was aware of his fragile health, and there was a chance that the child Tang Cheng carried might be his only heir. For the sake of giving his child a legitimate status, this decision seemed necessary. I admire your bravery. With mock solemnity, The eldest young master of the Qi ducal household patted Wen Huayan on the shoulder. The heir to the Dingbei Marquisate's eyes gleamed with mischief, a plan already forming in his mind. Huayan, fourth Miss Tang isn't exactly ideal as a main wife. You could marry a dignified and virtuous noblewoman, skilled in managing a household, as your main wife and take fourth Miss Tang as a secondary wife. The Marquis of Nanyang would likely agree. Once she gives birth, the child can be registered under the main wife's name. That's actually a good suggestion. Huayan, what do you think? The eldest young master of the Qi ducal household nodded in agreement. After all, although when Huayan struggled with his health and potential heirs, there were still plenty of noblewomen eager to marry into the duke's household. Difficulties with heirs didn't equate to being childless forever, and many of these women believed they would be the fortunate one. Unfortunately, it was the tactless fourth Miss Tang who had seized the opportunity first. Wen Huayan, however, firmly refused. Due to his frail constitution, he had little interest in women. Tang Cheng was a mere accident, yet he bore her no resentment. Even if Tang Cheng didn't have the qualities of a main wife, it wasn't an issue. His mother's presence in the duke's household ensured stability for now, and after her time passed, he could always assign someone to manage the household affairs. Seeing Wen Huayan's unwavering rejection, the two exchanged glances and sighed in silent regret. Knowing his temperament, they refrained from pressing further. Oh! The Jianan's resident Yaohong hesitated for a long moment before finally summoning the courage to cautiously report. Miss, news has come from the Marquis of Nanyang's residence. The Shan who we bribed has been dealt with by the Marquis himself. The Marquis also sent 20 new servants to fourth Miss Tang's side. Should we continue trying to bribe one of her maids? Lu Jintong's expression shifted slightly. As expected of the Marquis of Nanyang's most beloved daughter. No matter what trouble that fool Tang Cheng caused, the Marquis would always step in immediately to protect her and clean up the mess. Leave it for now, Lu Jintong said. Though the Marquis's indulgence of his illegitimate daughter was often criticized, he wasn't just a hereditary noble. He also held a third-rank position in court and enjoyed the emperor's favor. And now, with the immensely powerful duke's household backing Tang Cheng as well, Lu Jintong had no intention of exposing herself at this time. That fool Tang Cheng truly had the kind of luck that inspired envy. Fortunately, she was a natural at self-sabotage. In her previous life, Tang Cheng had eventually destroyed herself. Lu Jintong decided to set her aside for now, and focus her efforts on dealing with other enemies. Hearing this, Yaohong felt a wave of relief. The last thing she wanted was to meddle in the affairs of fourth Miss Tang, who was now so heavily shielded by the Marquis of Nanyang. Just as Lu Jintong decided to stop targeting Tang Cheng, the Duchess of Zhenguo, Madame Min made an unexpected visit. The Marchioness of Nanyang, Madame Zhang, received her. Upon learning that Madame Min was there to discuss the wedding date, Madame Zhang's expression turned slightly awkward. She offered an apologetic smile and said, "Madam, the matter of fourth Mrs. marriage is entirely up to the Marquis. Perhaps it would be best for me to consult him first before giving you a reply." Madame Min. The extent of Tang Cheng's favor in her family was both eye-opening and deeply frustrating to the Duchess. "It seems there's no other choice," she replied with a sigh, leaving empty-handed. As soon as Madame Min departed, the awkwardness and apologetic expression vanished from Madame Zhang's face, replaced by a leisurely air as she sipped her tea. If anyone wanted Tang Cheng married off quickly, it was none other than Madame Zhang. Unfortunately, the Marquis tightly controlled the matter of Tang Cheng's marriage, leaving Madame Zhang with no room to intervene. Not that she had any intention of doing so in the first place. The Marquis doting on fourth Miss was far better than favoring the concubines in the rear courtyard. For the sake of fourth Miss, there hadn't been a single pregnancy among the concubines in over a decade, nor had the Marquis shown any particular preference for any of them. After all, fourth Miss's late mother had been the love of the Marquis's life. Madame Zhang was more than pleased with this arrangement. Thinking about how fourth Miss would soon marry into the Duke of Zhenguo's household, the corners of Madame Zhang's lips lifted slightly in a faint smile. Her mood couldn't have been better. On a bright spring day, the sun shone warmly over the back garden of the peony estate where 5 makeshift stoves had been set up in an open area. Atop each stove, a bubbling cauldron emitted wisps of steam. Several women were busy stoking the fires with bundles of wood. Tang Cheng sat comfortably in a chair, leisurely directing her 4 personal maids to add medicinal ingredients into the pots. Originally, she had converted an empty room for refining her potions, but seeing how lovely the weather was, she decided to work outdoors instead. The entire back garden was soon filled with the pungent aroma of herbal medicine. "Miss, isn't brewing no refining 5 cauldrons of potions at once a bit too much?" Zhenju, following Tang Cheng's instructions, tossed a tiger bone into one of the pots. Dizzy from the strong herbal scent, she wobbled back to Tang Cheng's side, her voice faint and unsteady as she spoke. "It's not too much. Once the potions are done, there'll only be enough for 1 cauldron's worth. I'll need to set aside some for father and give some to Lord One. His constitution is so frail, he needs a good soak. There won't be much left after that, and I'm not even sure if it'll be enough." Tang Cheng had already allocated the fortifying potions with precision. Chao Momo and Gao Momo exchanged glances, speechless. Poor Lord One. To think 4th Miss Tang would openly call him frail, and even insist on giving him her experimental concoctions. Who knows what kind of gossip this will spark outside. Both Momo suddenly felt a pang of sympathy for him. The others in the courtyard. Zhenju silently lowered her head. "Miss, are you sure this method will actually produce a fortifying potion?" Hoopa, who had some medical knowledge, couldn't help but question. Watching her mistress casually instruct them to toss herbs into the cauldrons with each herb added at completely different times for each pot, it all seemed haphazard and utterly unreliable. Hoopa couldn't help but grow concerned. Tang Cheng nodded confidently. "Of course. You have to trust me. There are plenty of people in the estate. I'll find someone with a weak constitution to test the effects first. I'd never risk the baby in my belly. Everyone else." Chao Momo and Gao Momo breathed a small sigh of relief. Tang Cheng ignored the doubt in their eyes. Once the potion's effects were proven, all skepticism would vanish. She might appear carefree, openly brewing potions as if the recipe were nothing special, but if they thought they could replicate her fortifying potion formula, they were sorely mistaken. The secret lay in the use of soul power. Without it, no potion would have the desired effect. Tang Cheng herself was one of the rare few who possessed soul power. Unfortunately, she could only brew this one specific potion. If she'd known she would end up transmigrating, she would have put more effort into studying alchemy beforehand. Tang Cheng sighed briefly but quickly shrugged it off. She was a pampered noble lady born into luxury. Even if her childbearing potential was 0, the wealth from her enterprises was more than enough to let her live a carefree and extravagant life. No need to rely on potion making to earn credit points. In this life it was the same, though the quality of life was a far cry from what she'd enjoyed in the Empire. However, she had a highly fertile constitution with a perfect fertility score. Once she improved her overall health, she planned to have a whole bunch of babies. Tang Cheng, with her deep obsession with having children, secretly set herself a small goal. The thought brought a pleased smile to her lips. Half an hour later, all the necessary herbs had been added to the cauldrons, leaving only a few ingredients aside. The medicinal aroma in the courtyard grew increasingly strong, spreading beyond the peony estate and arousing the curiosity of others. Those who came to investigate were left speechless. 4th Miss really knew how to make a scene. Most of the servants working in the peony estate were actually spies planted by others. Tang Cheng's comment about Lord Wen being frail was deliberately leaked, along with news about the so-called fortifying potion, providing everyone with fresh gossip. "Mother, I heard 4th sister is brewing some fortifying potion. What exactly is a fortifying potion? I've never heard of it before." Tang Cheng, who had rushed to the main courtyard, was particularly interested. The name sounded modern, and she secretly began to suspect that Tang Cheng might also be a transmigrator. The Marchioness of Nanyang, Madame Zhang, casually replied, "It's just something made up by wandering Taoists to fool people. It's no surprise you haven't heard of it." Tang Cheng was momentarily stunned. Wandering Taoists? Aren't they usually the ones creating so-called elixirs or miracle pills to scam people? She voiced her confusion aloud. Madame Zhang couldn't help but laugh. Exiner were not fools. If such miraculous pills truly existed, those Taoists would have taken them themselves by now. That said, not all Taoists are frauds. Some do have a bit of real skill. As long as what they offer works, there will always be people willing to pay for it. She added this last remark almost as an afterthought. Tang Cheng. Suddenly, she felt like she had asked a rather foolish question. So, fourth sister hasn't transmigrated. Judging by her crude method of brewing potions, she's probably just been misled by someone. Tang Cheng let out a soft sigh of relief. At that moment, Tang Cheng was busily directing Hupong, the maid with medical skills, to remove the residue from the cauldrons. Then, she personally took the remaining ingredients, placed them into a mortar, and began grinding them with a pestle. Seeing that fourth miss was merely grinding herbs, Chow Momo and Gao Momo didn't intervene. No one could see or sense the ripple of Tang Cheng's soul power. What she was working on now was the true essence of the fortifying potion. The earlier spectacle was merely a preparatory step. Back in her original world, these tasks would have been handled by intelligent robots. But in this ancient era, where everything relied on manual labor, there were no precision instruments or convenient AI assistants to help. As a pampered young lady, Tang Cheng naturally wouldn't do the menial work herself. She simply gave orders to her servants. 15 minutes later, Hupong finished cleaning out all the herbal residue and, following her mistress's instructions, had the maidservants pour the liquid from the other 4 cauldrons into a single pot. Tang Cheng immediately added the finely ground herbal powder to the cauldron and began stirring while releasing her soul power. Before long, beads of sweat glistened faintly on her delicate, upturned nose. It's done. The fortifying potion is ready. Now to find someone with a weak constitution to test it. Tang Cheng smiled faintly as a hint of fatigue lingered between her brows. After traveling through time and space, her soul power had been greatly diminished, making potion making far more taxing. It would take her 2 or 3 days of rest to recover fully. Yet, as she gazed at the successfully brewed fortifying potion, her beautiful almond-shaped eyes sparkled with excitement and joy. Finally, she could begin improving this frail body. The 4 maids stared at the thick, black potion in the cauldron, instinctively gulping. It looked terrifying. The 2 Momo unconsciously took a small step back. Miss, shouldn't we have a physician examine the potion before testing it on someone? Zhenju's heart trembled. The pitch-black potion looked far too much like poison. What if it ended up killing someone outright? Tang Cheng's almond eyes widened in displeasure. You don't trust me? No. How could we not trust you, miss? Zhenju stammered, panicking. It's just that the Marquis specifically instructed us. Any potion you make must be examined by a physician before use. Zhenju quickly shook her head in denial, silently thinking, this wasn't about trust. This potion just looks way too suspicious. Tang Cheng felt they simply didn't appreciate its value. Fine. Zhenju, go summon a physician. While Zhenju was off fetching a physician from Jihe Hall, the Marquis of Nanyang returned to the estate. Upon entering, he encountered Chun Momo, who served Madame Zhang. Learning that Madame Zhang had something to discuss with him, the Marquis changed direction and headed to the main courtyard. Marquis, the Duchess of Zhenguo visited today to discuss setting a wedding date for the 4th young lady. She proposed having the wedding next month. I haven't given her an answer yet and wanted to hear your thoughts first. The Marquis was pleased that Madame Zhang hadn't made the decision on her own. I'll speak with Chenger about this first. Madame Zhang wasn't surprised in the slightest. After all, the Marquis doted on the 4th young lady excessively and would naturally take her opinion into account. In the entire Marquis' estate, the Marquis held the highest authority, unless it involved the 4th young lady. In those cases, she always took precedence. Without lingering in the main courtyard, the Marquis quickly headed toward the Peony estate. A figure in pale yellow stepped out from the inner chamber into the hall. Tang Cheng watched the Marquis' retreating figure with a complex expression. Mother, isn't father spoiling 4th sister a little too much? Bitterness swirled in Tang Cheng's heart. This isn't the first time. Haven't you grown used to it by now? Madame Zhang gently patted her daughter's hand, casting her a curious glance. Tang Cheng suddenly snapped back to her senses. I'm not the original Tang Cheng, so why should I care about the Marquis' affection? Mother, I understand. There won't be a next time. Tang Cheng promised earnestly, her expression resolute. I hope you've truly let it go, Madame Zhang said, giving her daughter a long searching look. By the way, The old madam of the Prince Cheng mansion will be celebrating her birthday in a few days. Make sure you prepare well for it. Tang Cheng shuddered slightly. In the original timeline, before the protagonist's rebirth, the original Tang Cheng had married the old Madam Cheng's legitimate second grandson. Aside from having a noble family status, a title, and receiving a court stipend, he was an utterly mediocre and talentless man. Yet, such a man was surprisingly sought after. Tang Cheng pressed her lips together, reluctantly nodding. Don't worry, mother. I'll prepare properly. Madame Zhang frowned slightly but said nothing. Her intention in asking her daughter to prepare well was to ensure she could catch the old madam's eye and secure a marriage into Prince Cheng's household. The Prince Cheng family had always stayed out of the imperial succession struggles. Although the second grandson of the old madam was unremarkable, he had a good character. With Tang Cheng's status as the legitimate daughter of both a marquis's household and a third-rank official, she was certainly qualified to marry into the imperial family. But Madame Zhang, protective of her daughter, didn't want her caught up in the dangerous rivalries between princes or married into a powerful aristocratic family. Thus, the Prince Cheng household was a safer and more suitable option. However, Tang Cheng, who now possessing the memories of someone who had read the novel, had no understanding of Madame Zhang's well-meaning intentions. Her vision was clouded by her knowledge of the book's plot, and only focused on how, in the original timeline, the protagonist had scorned the original Tang Cheng for marrying a mediocre member of the royal family. Tang Cheng had no idea how her predecessor's life had truly been and thus resisted Madame Zhang's plans with all her heart. Before heading to the peony estate, the Marquis of Nanyang had already learned that his precious daughter had successfully brewed the fortifying potion. He arrived just in time, as the senior physician from Jiha Hall was inspecting the fortifying potion. The Marquis of Nanyang was startled when he saw the small bowl of dark, murky potion. Is it poisonous? The four maidservants lowered their heads. Tang Cheng. Father, how could the potion I made be poisonous? The Marquis twitched his lips. Let the physician finish checking first. The old physician smiled and reassured him. Marquis, there's no problem with the potion that Miss Tang made. As for whether it has any fortifying effect, I can't say for sure. You might want to find someone to test it. Everyone was stunned. The senior physician from Jiha Hall was highly skilled, and everyone trusted his words. Tang Cheng huffed. I told you the potion I made was fine, but none of you believed me. Humph. The Marquis of Nanyang quickly tried to placate his precious daughter. Yes, it's all my fault. There's no need to find someone else to test the potion. Let me do it. Marquis. The Marquis's trusted servant was startled. Seeing her father's actions, Tang Cheng felt pleased. She affectionately linked her arm through his and cheerfully said, Father, I'll have someone prepare the bath barrel right away. Everyone else. The old physician didn't leave. He was curious to see the effects of the fortifying potion that Miss Tang had made. While the servants prepared the bath barrel, the Marquis of Nanyang and Tang Cheng sat down to wait. The Marquis picked up his teacup and mentioned the proposal from the Madam of Duke of Zhenguo. Father, isn't it a bit rushed for me to get married next month? It feels embarrassing to marry so hastily. Can't I wait until after I've had the baby? Tang Cheng gently stroked her abdomen, furrowing her delicate brows. Pfft. The Marquis of Nanyang, who was sipping his tea, suddenly sprayed it out. The four maidservants and the two old Momo were stunned. Get married after having the baby? Had they heard that correctly?